Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Assalamu alaikum. This is chapter 11, the new chapter after we have done with the chapter 7 in the first course and the first two lectures in the second course. Now we start with chapter 11. Chapter 7, as we have said, it is concerned with the simple sentence, the sentence that has one idea or represents one thought. So while this chapter deals with the sentence which is complex or more complicated, meaning that the sentence could have two or more different ideas. And since there are two or more different ideas, then we have to provide structures, or I should say constructions, to represent these two or more different ideas. And these ideas should be represented in sentences. And these sentences are connected to each other, meaning that the ideas themselves are connected to each other. So, what we do here is to link two or more sentences into one sentence. When I say two or more sentences, I mean two or more simple sentences. The sentences that we have done in the first, we have studied in the first in chapter 7, which is entitled Simple Sentence. So I mean two simple sentences. Whenever we combine, we bring together two simple sentences into one complicated, or let's say complex sentence, then it is the combined or coordinated or subordinated sentences. So that's why we see the title of this chapter, which is Coordination and Subordination. Coordination meaning to coordinate two sentences, to link two or more sentences, while subordination, which means to superordinate and subordinate two sentences, meaning that one of the sentence is the main of the sentences is the main sentence, and the other is the subordinate or the secondary sentence. That depends. We will talk about this through the lectures of this chapter. I hope that you pay very, very, very much attention to this chapter. It is very significantly important because it can cover a panoramic view regarding the English, the grammar of the English sentence in general. So you should pay attention. It has so many details to be taken into account, and I only hope that in the coming weeks that we can cover as much as possible from this chapter. So as you see, mainly this chapter mainly deals with coordination and subordination. So what is coordination? Simply speaking, I'm not going to dig deep into the definitions and the theoretical backgrounds, rather than doing the practical side in the second part of this lecture. So coordination is the joining of two or more independent clauses. Independent clauses. Whenever we say clause, as I have defined it earlier, whenever we say clause, then we mean a simple sentence. Clause is a simple sentence. Sentence is a complicated or complex sentence. So here, when we say clause, two clauses, then we deal with the simple sentences. The simple sentence can be dependent or independent. Dependent the dependent sentence or simple sentence or clause, the dependent clause represents the idea that is completed, the full idea which is represented by a simple sentence. That's it. The full idea which is represented by a simple sentence. In terms of meaning, it is a full idea. In terms of form, it is a simple sentence. That's it. This is called an independent clause. While the dependent clause, the clause that depends on another one to complete its meaning or to have its meaning full. So, if we take the example, I like John. I like John is a completed idea. It is a completed sentence or a complete sentence. So I like John, I like grammar, I study English, and so on and so forth. These simple sentences or clauses are or represent full ideas, and then they are independent. They do not need to other sentences or other clauses to subordinate them to have the full meaning. So these are called the clauses or simple sentences, as we have defined earlier in chapter 7. Now, combining two simple sentences or two clauses, combining them together, we will have coordinated sentences. Now, when we put independent clause plus another independent clause through one of the two independent sentences, through one of the coordinators or linkers, in the grammatical terms they are called coordinator. A coordinator, it could be and, or, but, when, where, semicolon, con, comma, and so on and so forth. These are the coordinators. The coordinators. Now, if we coordinate two simple sentences or two independent sentences, which means coordinating two full meaning ideas, then we should need to one of the coordinators, which is, as we said, and, or, but, etc. Now, here the example, I like John and John likes me. Two separate or independent clauses are linked by one of these coordinators, which is and. Now, if we can say, I saw you when you entered to the college. I saw you, it is a completed sentence. When you entered to the college, another sentence. However, the second one seems not to be a complete sentence. Why? Because it needs something. It needs something to be completed. Then this is not coordinated according to the two independent clauses. Then we can say, I saw Ahmed, and Ahmed was with Ali, for example. And Ahmed was... So we can say, I saw Ahmed is an independent clause, and Ahmed was with Ali, or Ahmed was with Ali, is another independent clause. So the link is the coordinator and so on and so forth. So this is the process of coordination. Coordination, simply speaking or grammatically speaking, is the term used to implicate the combining or linking two or more independent clauses by using a coordinator. Okay, this is called coordination. The other part of this lecture is the subordination. Now, subordination. The Subordination again is the process, the grammatical process, where we combine or join one independent clause with one or more dependent clause or clauses. Okay, one with one or more dependent clause or clauses. So we've just defined what is the independent clause. We said that the independent clause is the clause which has a full idea. Dependent clause, the dependent clause is the clause or the simple sentence which is in need to be completed in terms of meaning and grammar by attaching to another independent clause. The independent clause to which the dependent clause is attached is called the superordinate or the main clause or the matrix. Okay, while the dependent clause is called the subordinate clause. The subordinate clause. Okay, so we have superordinate and subordinate. The superordinate is the one which is the main, the mother, while the daughter is the subordinate clause. How can we link them? Can we use the coordinators? Of course not. Of course not. We should use a subordinator. A subordinator. These subordinators, such as while, when, although, and so on and so forth, that are used, which, that, and so on and so forth, that are used to link the main clause or the matrix clause or the superordinate clause or the independent clause and the dependent clause. Now, if we say, for example, I like John because he likes me. So here, I like John is or represents the main idea. I like John represents the main idea, while because he likes me is the independent clause. Why is it dependent? Why is it dependent? It is dependent because this whole clause depends on this one in terms of having the full meaning. So the dependent clause can have no meaning without the matrix or the independent clause. That's why. So here, because is the subordinator which links the independent clause with the dependent one. So sometimes clauses are joined without a linking word, zero linking word. Of course, as I said, we put certain punctuation marks such as the semicolon, the colon, the colon, the comma, and so on and so forth. For example, we say I like John, then we put semicolon here, and we delete the subordinate, of course. So it'll be I like John, he likes me, and this semicolon represents the causality, which is because he likes me. So here this indicates the subordinator because, okay, indicates the subordinator because, and so on and so forth. Now, now, what are the differences between coordination and subordination? What are the differences between? This is very important. It might be a question in the exam. So, what are the differences? What are the differences between coordination and subordination? They're obviously clear. In terms of coordination, we have two independent clauses. We just said this. Two independent clauses, two simple sentences having full meaning. Two independent clauses having the full meaning. Okay, well, in subordination, as we just said, in subordination we have two or more. We have one main clause plus two or more dependent clauses. Dependent, sometimes called subordinate clauses. Sometimes called subordinate clauses. Okay, and this is the core differences between these two. Now, if we take this example, I like John and John likes me. These are two sentences which are simple ones or independent ones. Okay, I like John, he likes me. I like John, he likes me. They are coordinated or linked by the coordinator, and so they are both so they are both independent clauses and having full meaning. Well, if we take subordination into account, we can find I like John because he likes me. Okay, so because he likes me cannot stand alone with the full meaning unless it is attached to the main clause or the independent clause, which is I like John. Without I like John, we cannot start or we cannot have this subordinate sentence alone. So this is the main main difference. So this is the main difference. Another difference between coordination and subordination is that in coordination a coordinator is used. There must be a coordinator, which could be and, but, okay, though, through, and so on and so forth. There must be a coordinator used to link the two sentences, while in the subordination, in subordination, a subordinator is used as well. But here I should say sometimes it is not used. Sometimes it is not used. So subordination here in subordination we use a subordinator is used, and sometimes it is not used, as we just said. Sometimes we can replace it or exchange it with a semicolon or with a colon or without any of these aforementioned. So this is another difference. The third difference is that it is not possible to make coordination without a coordinator. It is not possible to make a coordination without a coordinator. Having no coordinator, then having no coordinated sentence. Okay, so we cannot say Ali is here, Ahmed is not here. Okay, these are two simple sentences. But if we say Ali is here but Ahmed is not here, so this sentence having this but as a coordinator coordinates these two simple sentences or clauses. While the matter is different in the subordination, we can use the subordination without a subordinator. For example, leaving the room, he tripped over the mat. Okay, so this the word leaving could be because he left the room, he tripped over the mat, or he left the room or he tripped over the mat because he left the room, and so on and so forth. Again, here we just used the comma here, the cause and effect function of a given sentence. So these are the most three basic differences between coordination and subordination. What do we have else? So to have a mutual understanding, these terms must be taken into account. Dependent clause, which means subordinate clause, and sometimes called secondary clause, sometimes called secondary clause. Dependent clause, subordinate clause, or secondary clause, as we call it, is the one that is used as attached to the main one or the independent clause in order to have its meaning complete. Okay. Now, what about the independent clause? It is called, as I said in the beginning of this lecture, it is called superordinate clause or main clause, or sometimes matrix clause. These are the terminologies that have been used by different scholars or different grammarians in different according to different schools. However, the function, the meaning, the implications of the clauses or sentences are the same. The principle is the same. One is independent, the other is dependent on the first independent one. Then we have structure. In terms of element, they themselves contain, and by function, that is the parts they play in the superordinate clause. So the structure of a given simple sentence, whether it is dependent or independent, and the function that they play in the subordinate clause. So dependent clauses can be classified into two ways. Dependent clauses can be classified into two ways according to structure, okay, and according to function. According to structure and according to function. According to the structure, as we just said, they are the elements themselves, which is the dependent, and how it is used by a subordinator and the subordinate sentence, while the function is the parts they play in the superordinate. This is how we classify the clauses. So that's all in this lecture. Now, to recap, to put it in short, we've talked about the coordination and subordination, chapter 11, coordination and subordination, and we've said that they are so important, they are significantly important, as they put you in a panoramic view to the grammar of the English sentence. And we have defined coordination, coordinators, subordination and subordinators. We've said that the differences between these two important aspects in linking the sentences, linking two or more sentences together. The core differences are the coordination. We cannot make sentences without a coordinator, while here we can make sentences without a coordinator using the certain punctuation marks, and so on and so forth. That's all for me. In the next lecture, I am gonna explain it with the exercises mentioned in the workbook. So please pay much more attention to this lecture and the ones to come. Thank you very much. That's all for me.